It was a frosty Christmas Eve, and the snow fell softly, blanketing the quiet neighborhood in the serene white. Emma had just returned home from her church's annual carol service. She loved the holidays, the twinkling lights, the smell of cinnamon in the air, and the cheerful sound of Christmas music. But tonight, something felt off. As Emma prepared for bed, she heard the faint sound of caroling outside. Curious, she peeked through her frosted bedroom window. A lone figure stood in the street, barely illuminated by the dim glow of a street lamp. The person wore a tattered Santa hat and held a candle that flickered in the breeze. The melody was haunting, slow and mournful, a far cry from the cheerful carols she was used to. Thinking it was a prank, Emma shook her head and closed the curtains. But the singing didn't stop. It grew louder, closer. The eerie tune seeped into her room, filling it with a chill that had nothing to do with the winter night. She glanced at the window again. The figure was now at the end of her driveway, staring directly at her. Panicking, Emma grabbed her phone to call the police. But as she dialed, the singing stopped. The silence was deafening. She hesitated, then peeked outside once more. The street was empty. Relieved, she turned off the lights and climbed into bed. Just as she began to drift off, she heard it again. This time, the voice was inside the house, singing softly in the hallway. Emma's breathing quickened. She crept to her bedroom door, clutching a flashlight. She swung it open, her hand trembling. The hallway was empty, but the melody now seemed to echo from everywhere. The haunting refrain filled her ears, making her dizzy. She backed into her room, locking the door behind her. Suddenly, the window burst open, letting in a freezing gust of wind that snuffed out her flashlight. The candlelight appeared again, now inside her room, illuminating the figure standing at the foot of her bed. The caroler's face was pale, almost translucent, with hollow eyes that seemed to suck the light out of the room. It tilted its head, still singing, as it reached a bony hand toward her. The next morning, Emma's family found her bed empty, the window wide open, and a trail of wet footprints leading out into the snow. No one ever saw her again. Every Christmas Eve since, neighbors report hearing a mournful carol drifting through the air. Some swear they've seen a pale figure wandering the streets, holding a flickering candle and searching for its next listener. The Johnson family loved Christmas, and their centerpiece was always their tree. This year, they'd outdone themselves, choosing a massive pine from a local farm. They decorated it with golden baubles, glittering lights, and an angel that seemed to glow. But from the moment the tree was set up, strange things began happening. At night, the lights would flicker on their own. Ornaments shifted positions, and the angel topper was found on the floor more than once. The family laughed it off, blaming the cat. On Christmas Eve, young Tommy swore he heard whispers coming from the tree. His parents dismissed his fears, telling him it was just the wind. But Tommy wasn't convinced. That night, he crept downstairs to prove he wasn't imagining things. The living room was dark except for the faint glow of the Christmas lights. As Tommy approached the tree, the whispers grew louder. They weren't random. They were calling his name. Trembling, he reached out to touch the branches, but the tree seemed to recoil. Suddenly, the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. A cold hand grabbed his wrist. Tommy screamed and his parents rushed downstairs. But by the time they turned on the lights, he was gone. The only sign of him was his slippers, lying neatly beneath the tree. Desperate, the Johnsons searched the house, calling for Tommy. When they inspected the tree more closely, they noticed something horrifying. Hidden among the branches were faint outlines of faces, twisted in silent screams. One of them looked eerily like Tommy. The family tried to take the tree down the next day, but every time they touched it, they felt sharp pains, as though needles were piercing not just their skin, but their very souls. The whispers returned, now louder, angrier, accusing. By New Year's Eve, the Johnsons had abandoned the house. When a cleanup crew arrived weeks later, the tree was gone. In its place was a circle of charred carpet and a faint, lingering smell of pine mixed with decay. No one could explain what happened, but local rumors claimed that the farm where the tree had been cut down was cursed, a burial ground for those who had vanished in the nearby woods decades ago. On the surface, the little antique toy shop seemed harmless, even charming. It was the kind of place that thrived during the holiday season, but the shopkeeper always warned customers about one item: a vintage toy soldier with a cracked face and faded paint. "This one's not for sale," he'd say, his voice stern. But when a young woman named Clara wandered in on Christmas Eve, she became captivated by the toy soldier. Ignoring the shopkeeper's warnings, she offered him double the asking price. Reluctantly, he agreed, muttering something about responsibility. Clara placed the soldier on her mantelpiece that evening, admiring its craftsmanship. But as midnight approached, strange things began to happen. She awoke to the sound of marching feet in her living room. When she went to investigate, the soldier was no longer on the mantel. It stood in the middle of the floor, its painted eyes glaring up at her. Nervously, Clara picked it up and returned it to its spot. But as she turned to leave, she heard a faint chuckle behind her. The toy soldier's head had turned to follow her. She tried to brush it off as her imagination, but the next day things grew worse. Her Christmas decorations were torn down, her gifts ripped open, and the soldier seemed to appear in different rooms, always watching. One morning, she woke up to find it perched on her pillow, its painted grin wider than before. Terrified, Clara returned to the shop, demanding answers. The shopkeeper's face went pale. "It's not just a toy," he confessed. "It's a vessel, a spirit bound to it long ago, a soldier betrayed and left to die on Christmas Eve. It seeks vengeance, and it won't stop until it's claimed someone." Desperate, Clara asked how to break the curse. "You can't," he replied. "You can only pass it on." That night, Clara left the toy soldier on a park bench, hoping someone else would take it. But when she returned home, it was waiting for her on the mantel, its grin now impossibly wide. By morning, Clara's neighbors reported hearing screams from her apartment. When the police arrived, they found the place in shambles, as if a battle had taken place. Clara was nowhere to be found, but the toy soldier remained, its once faded paint now gleaming bright red. It sat on the mantel, its cracked face twisted into a sinister grin. Weeks later, the shopkeeper was seen placing the soldier back in his window, a grim expression on his face. The sign beneath it read, "Not for sale,"